first Grendel came greedily loping. The bane of the race of men roamed forth, hunting for prey in the high hall. In the cloud murk, he moved towards it until it shone above him, a sheer keep of fortified gold. Nor was that the first time he had scouted the grounds of Hrothgar's dwelling, although never in his life, before or since, did he find harder fortune or hall defenders. Spurned and joyless, he journeyed on ahead and arrived at the bawn. The iron-braced door turned on its hinge when his hands touched it. Then his rage boiled over. He ripped open the mouth of the building, maddening for blood, pacing the length of the patterned floor with his loathsome tread, while a baneful light, flame more than light, flared from his eyes. He saw many men in the mansion, sleeping, a ranked company of kinsmen and warriors quartered together. And his glee was demonic, picturing the mayhem. Before morning, he would rip life from limb and devour them, feed on their flesh. But his fate that night was due to change. His days of ravening had come to an end. Mighty and canny, Hygelac Kingsman was keenly watching for the first move the monster would make. Nor did the creature keep him waiting. But struck suddenly and started in. He grabbed and mauled a man on his bench, bit into his bone lappings, bolted down his blood, and gorged on him in lumps, leaving the body utterly lifeless, eaten up hand and foot. Venturing closer, his talon was raised to attack Beowulf where he lay on the bed. He was bearing in with open claw when the alert hero's comeback and arm lock forestalled him utterly. The captain of evil discovered himself in a hand grip harder than anything he had ever encountered in any man on the face of the earth. Every bone in his body quailed and recoiled, but he could not escape. He was desperate to flee to his den and hide with the devil's litter. For in all his days, he had never been clamped or cornered like this. Then Hygelac's trusty retainer recalled his bedtime speech, sprang to his feet and got a firm hold. Fingers were bursting, the monster backtracking, the man overpowering. The dread of the land was desperate to escape, to take a roundabout road and flee to his lair in the fens. The latching power in his fingers weakened. It was the worst trip that terrormonger had taken to Hyrule, And now the timbers trembled and sang, a whole session that harrowed every Dane inside the stockade. Stumbling in fury, the two contenders crashed through the building. The hall clattered and hammered, but somehow survived the onslaught and kept standing. It was handsomely structured, a sturdy frame, braced with the best of blacksmith's work inside and out. The story goes that as the pair struggled, mead benches were smashed and sprung off the floor, gold fittings and all. Before then, no shielding elder would believe there was any power or person upon earth capable of wrecking their horn-rigged hall, unless the burning embrace of a fire engulf it in flame. Then an extraordinary wail arose, and bewildering fear came over the Danes. Everyone felt it who heard that cry as it echoed off the wall. A God-cursed scream and strain of catastrophe. The howl of the loser, the lament of the hell serf keening his wound. He was overwhelmed, manacled tight by the man who of all men was foremost and strongest in the days of his life. But the Earl Troop's leader was not inclined to allow his caller to depart alive. He did not consider that life of much account to anyone anywhere. Time and again, Beowulf's warriors worked to defend their lord's life, laying about them as best as they could with their ancestral blades. Stalwart in action, they kept striking out on every side, seeking to cut straight to the soul. When they joined the struggle, there was something they could not have known at the time, that no blade on earth, no blacksmith's art could ever damage their demon opponent. He had conjured the harm from the cutting edge of every weapon. But his going away out of this world, and the days of his life would be agony to him. And his alien spirit would travel far into fiend's keeping. Then he who had harrowed the hearts of men with pain and affliction in former times, and had given offense also to God, found that his bodily powers failed him. Hygelaic's kinsmen kept him helplessly locked in a hand grip. As long as either lived, he was hateful to the other. The monster's whole body was in pain. A tremendous wound appeared on his shoulder. Sinews split and the bone lappings burst. Beowulf was granted the glory of winning. Grendel was driven under the fen banks, fatally hurt to his desolate lair. His days were numbered. The end of his life was coming over him. He knew it for certain. And one bloody clash had had fulfilled the dearest wishes of the Danes. The man who had lately landed among them, proud and sure, had purged the hall, kept it from harm. He was happy with his night work and the courage he had shown. The gate captain had boldly fulfilled his boast to the Danes. He had healed and relieved a huge distress, unremitting humiliations, the hard fate they'd been forced to undergo, no small affliction. Clear proof of this could be seen in the hand the hero displayed, high up near the roof. The whole of Grendel's shoulder and arm, his awesome grasp. Then morning came, and many a warrior gathered, as I've heard, around the gift hall. Clan chiefs flocking from far and near, down wide-ranging roads, wondering greatly at the monster's footprints. His fatal departure was regretted by no one who witnessed his trail. The ignominious marks of his flight, where he'd skulked away, exhausted in spirit and beaten in battle, bloodying the path, hauling his doom to the demon's mere. The bloodshot water wallowed and surged. There were loathsome upthrows and overturnings of waves, and gore and wound slurry. With his death upon him, he had dived deep into his marsh den, drowned out his life and his heathen soul. Hell claimed him there. Then away they rode, the old retainers, with many a young man following after. A troop on horseback, in high spirits on their bay steeds. Beowulf's doings were praised over and over again. Nowhere, they said, north or south, between the two seas, or under the tall sky on the broad earth, was there anyone better to raise a shield or to rule a kingdom. There was no laying of blame on their lord, the noble Hrothgar. He was a good king. At times the war band broke into a gallop, letting their chestnut horses race. Wherever they found the going good on those well-known tracks. Meanwhile, a thane of the king's household, a carrier of tales, a traditional singer, deeply schooled in the lore of the past, linked a new theme to a strict meter. The man started to recite with skill, rehearsing Beowulf's triumphs and feats in well-fashioned lines, entwining his words. He told what he'd heard, repeated in songs, about Sigmund's exploits, all of those many feats and marvels, the struggles and wanderings of Whale's son, things unknown to anyone except to Fetela, feuds and foul doings confided by uncle to nephew when he felt the urge to speak of them. Always they had been partners in the fight, friends in need. They killed giants. Their conquering swords had brought them down. After his death, Siegmund's glory grew and grew because of his courage. When he killed the dragon, the guardian of the horde, under Greystone, he had dared to enter all by himself to face the worst without Ventolin. But it came to pass that his sword plunged right through those radiant scales and drove into the wall. The dragon died of it. His daring had given him total passion of the treasure hoard, his to dispose of however he liked. He loaded a boat. Whale's son weighed her hold with dazzling spoils. The hot dragon melted. Siegmund's name was known everywhere. He was utterly valiant and venturesome. A fence round his fighters, and flourished therefore, after King Hermod's prowess declined, and his campaigns slowed down. The king was betrayed, ambushed in Jutland, overpowered and done away with. The waves of his grief had beaten him down, made him a burden, a source of anxiety to his own nobles. That expedition was often condemned in those early times by experienced men. Men who relied on his lordship for redress, who presumed that the part of a prince was to thrive on his father's throne and defend the nation, the shielding land where they lived and belonged, its holdings and strongholds. Such was Beowulf in the affection of his friends and of everyone alive. But evil entered into Hermod. Meanwhile, the Danes kept racing their mounts down sandy lanes. The light of day broke and kept brightening. Bands of retainers galloped in excitement to the gabled hall to see the marvel. And the king himself, guardian of the ring hoard, goodness in person, walked in majesty from the women's quarters with a numerous train, attended by his queen and her crowd of maidens across to the mead hall. When Hrothgar arrived at the hall, he spoke. Standing on the steps, under the steep eaves, gazing at the roofwork and Grendel's talon. First and foremost, let the Almighty Father be thanked for this sight. I suffered a long harrowing by Grendel, but the Heavenly Shepherd can work his wonders always and everywhere. Not long since, it seemed I would never be granted the slightest solace or relief from any of my burdens. The best of houses glittered and reeked and ran with blood. This one worry outweighed all others, a constant distress to counselors entrusted with defending the people's forts from assault by monsters and demons. But now a man, with the Lord's assistance, has accomplished something none of us could manage before now. For all our efforts, whoever she was who brought forth this flower of manhood, if she is still alive, that woman can say that in her labor the Lord of ages bestowed a grace upon her. So now, Beowulf, I adopt you in my heart as a dear son. Nourish and maintain this new connection. You noblest of men, there'll be nothing you'll want for. No worldly goods that won't be yours. I have often honored smaller achievements, recognized warriors not nearly as worthy, lavished rewards on the less deserving. But you have made yourself immortal by your glorious action. May the God of ages continue to keep and requite you well. Beowulf, son of Ectheo, spoke. We have gone through with glorious endeavor and been much favored in this fight. We dared against the unknown. Nevertheless, if you could have seen the monster himself, where he lay beaten, I would have been better pleased. My plan was to pounce, pin him down in a tight grip, and grapple him to death. Have him panting for life, powerless and clasped in my bare hands, his body in thrall. But I couldn't stop him from slipping my hold. The Lord allowed it. My lock on him wasn't strong enough. He struggled fiercely and broke and ran. Yet he bought his freedom at a high price. For he left his hand and arm and shoulder to show he had been here, a cold comfort for having come among us. And now he won't be long for this world. He has done his worst, but the wound will end him. He is hasped and hooped and hurpling with pain, limping and looped in it, like a man outlawed for wickedness. He must await the mighty judgment of God in majesty. There was less tampering and big talk then from Unferth the boaster, less of his blather, as the hall thanes eyed the awful proof of the hero's prowess, the splayed hand up under the eaves. Every nail, claw, scale, and spur, every spike and welt on the hand of that heathen brute was like barbed steel. Everybody said there was no honed iron hard enough to pierce him through, no time-proofed blade. That could cut his brutal, blood-caked claw. Then the order was given for all hands to help refurbish Herod immediately. Men and women thronging in the wine hall, getting it ready. shone in the wall hangings, woven scenes that attracted and held the eye's attention. But iron-braced as the inside of it had been, that bright room lay in ruins now. The very doors that had been dragged from their hinges. Only the roof remained unscathed by the time the guilt-fouled fiend turned tail in despair of his life. But death is not easily escaped from by anyone. All of us with souls, earth dwellers and children of men, must make our way to a destination already ordained, where the body, after the banqueting, sleeps on its deathbed. Then the due time arrived for Halfdane's son to proceed to the hall. The king himself would sit down to feast. No group ever gathered in greater numbers or better order around their ring-giver. The benches filled with famous men who fell to with relish. Round upon round of mead was passed. Those powerful kinsmen, Hrothgar and Hrothulf, were in high spirits in the raftered hall. Inside Heorot there was nothing but friendship. The shielding nation was not yet familiar with feud and betrayal. Then Halfdane's son presented Beowulf with a gold standard as a victory gift. An embroidered banner, also breast mail and a helmet, and a sword carried high. That was both a precious object and token of honor. So Beowulf drank his drink at ease. It was hardly a shame to be showered with such gifts in front of the hall troops. There hadn't been many moments, I am sure, when men exchanged for such treasures at so friendly a sitting. An embossed ridge, a band lapped with wire, arched over the helmet. Head protection to keep the keen ground cutting edge from damaging it when danger threatened. And the man was battling behind his shield. Next, the king ordered 8 horses with gold bridles to be brought through the yard into the hall. The harness of one included a saddle of sumptuous design. The battle seat where the son of Halfdane rode when he wished to join the swordplay. Wherever the killing and carnage were the worst, he would be to the fore, fighting hard. Then the Danish prince, descended of Ing, handed over both the arms and the horses, urging Beowulf to use them well. And so their leader, the lord and guard of coffer and strong room, with customary grace, bestowed upon Beowulf both sets of gifts. A fair witness can see how well each one behaved. The chieftain went on to reward the others, each man on the bench who had sailed with Beowulf, and risked the voyage, received a bounty, some treasured possession, and compensation, a price in gold, was settled for the grandier Finn's daring prevented that doom. Past and present, God's will prevails. Hence, understanding is always best, and a prudent mind. Whoever remains for long here in this earthly life will enjoy and endure more than enough. They sang then and played to please the hero. Words and music for their warrior prince, harp tunes and tales of adventure. There were high times on the hall benches, and the king's poet performed his part with the saga of Finn and his sons, unfolding the tale of the fierce attack in Friesland, where Hnaf, king of the Danes, met death. Hildebur had little cause to credit the Jutes, son and brother. She lost them both on the battlefield. She, bereft and blameless, they foredoomed, cut down and spear gored. She, the woman in shock, waylaid by grief. Hawk's daughter, how could she not lament her fate when morning came and the light broke on her murdered dears? And so farewell, delight on earth, war carried away Finn's troop of thanes, all but a few. How then could Finn hold the line, or fight on to the end with Hengist? How save the rump of his force from that enemy chief? So a truce was offered as follows. First, separate quarters to be cleared for the Danes, hall and throne to be shared with the Frisians. Then second, every day at the dole out of gifts, Finn, son of Folkwald, should honor the Danes, bestow with an even hand to Hengest, and Hengest's men the wrought gold wing rings. Bounty to match the treasure he gave his own Frisians to keep morale in the beer hall high. Both sides then sealed their agreement. With oaths to Hengist. Finn swore openly, solemnly, that the battle survivors would be guaranteed honor and status. No infringement by word or deed. No provocation would be permitted. Their own ring giver, after all, was dead and gone. They were leaderless, enforced allegiance to his murderer. So if any Frisians stirred up bad blood with insinuations or taunts about this, the blade of the sword would arbitrate it. A funeral pyre was then prepared. Effulgent gold swirled and fumed. They stood round the burial mound and howled as heads melted, crusted gashes spattered, and ran bloody matter. The glutton element flamed and consumed the dead of both sides. Their great days were gone. Warriors scattered to homes and forts. All over Friesland, fewer now, feeling loss of friends. Hengest stayed, lived out that whole resentful, blood-sullen winter with Finn. Homesick and helpless. No ring-whirled prow could up then and away on the sea. Wind and water raged with storms, wave and shingle were shackled in ice, until another year appeared in the yard, as it does to this day. The seasons constant, the wonder of light coming over us. Then winter was gone, earth's lap grew lovely, long woke, in the cooped-up exile for a voyage home. But for more vengeance, some way of bringing things to a head, his sword arm anchored to greet the Jutes. So he did not balk, once Hunlefing, placed on his lap, dazzled the duel. The best sword of all. Whose edges Jutes knew only all too well. Thus blood was spilled, the gallant Finn slain in his home. After Guthlaf and Olslav, back from their voyage, made old accusation. The brutal ambush, the fate they had suffered, all blamed on Finn. The wildness in them had to brim over. The hall ran red with blood of enemies. Finn was cut down. The queen brought away, and everything the shieldings could find inside Finn's walls. The Frisian king's gold collars and gemstones swept off to the ship. Over sea lanes then, back to Daneland, the warrior troop bore that lady home. The poem was over. The poet had performed. A pleasant murmur started on the benches. Stewards did the rounds with wine in splendid jugs. And Wealthiel came to sit in her gold crown between two good men, uncle and nephew, each of whom still trusted the other, and the forthright Unferth admired for his mind and courage. All open-handed, happy and fond. Relish their company, but recollect as well all of the boons that had been bestowed on you. The bright court of Heorot has been cleansed, and now the word is that you want to adopt this warrior as a son. So while you may bask in your fortune, and then bequeath kingdom and nation to your kith and kin before you decease, I am certain of Hrothulf. He is noble and will use the young ones well. He will not let you down. Should you die before him, he will treat our children truly and fairly. He will honor, I am sure, our 2 sons. Repay them in kind when he recollects all the good things we once gave him once, the favor and respect he found in his childhood. She turned then to the bench where her boy sat. Hrethric and Hrothmund with other noble sons. All the youth together. And that good man, Beowulf the Gate, sat between the brothers. The cup was carried to him, kind words spoken in welcome, and a wreath of wrought gold graciously bestowed. 2 arm bangles, a mail shirt and rings, and the most resplendent torque of gold I have ever heard tell of anywhere on earth or under heaven. There was no hoard like it since Hama snatched the Brosing's neck chain and bore it away with its gems and settings to his shining fort, away from Eremric's wiles and hatred, and therefore ensured his eternal reward. Hygelac the Gate, grandson of Swearting, wore this neck ring on his last raid. At bay under his banner, defended the booty treasure he had won. Fate swept him away because of his proud need to provoke a feud with the Frisians. He fell beneath his shield in the same gem-crusted, kingly gear he had worn when he crossed the frothing Wayvat. So the dead king fell into Frankish hands. They took his breast mail, also his neck torque, and Punir warriors plundered the slain when the carnage ended. Gate corpses covered the field. Applause filled the hall. Then Wiltheo pronounced in the presence of the company, "Take delight in this torque, dear Beowulf. Wear it for luck, and wear also this mail from our people's armory. May you prosper in them. Be acclaimed for strength, for kindly guidance for these 2 boys, and your bounty will be sure. You have won renown, and you are known to all men, far and near, now and forever. Your sway is wide as the wind's home, as the sea round cliffs. And so, my prince, I wish you a lifetime's luck and blessings to enjoy this treasure. Okay, I'm gonna stop right there. Stopping at 12:30. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I hope you're asleep. If you're not, please like and subscribe.